it is a new firm, relatively new firm to us compared to the other firm. But they're not inexperienced officers. They're qualified, and I'm sorry I didn't get your last name, Jonathan, but Alvarez. Could you come perhaps and speak a little bit to the experience of your company and qualifications for performing this work? And I think that would satisfy the commissioners.
You know, and I think while Mr. Alvarez is coming up, I think Mr. McCurdy brings up a very valuable point in terms of the methods and approaches to interaction with the public, particularly our residents. If you have trained protocols on how to engage, what's appropriate. I mean, you know, it's unfortunate the other folks aren't here to speak to the reluctance and, you know, kind of backing out on their contractual obligations. That's definitely a question that deserves an answer. But relative to where we're at today in engagement with you and asking you to come in and help us, because security, you know, since I've been on the board, that's been a topic very common throughout our board meetings and discussions, is to have the highest caliber of security for the safety and protection of our residents. But, you know, also just the human interaction and how important that is, and the trust factor, and being able to scale up to that level of trust. You know, it's earned, it's not, you know, given. And so I'd like to hear from you, and if Commissioner McCurdy would like to elaborate, you know, or if you want to restate your question if necessary. But is that pretty much it? Is just the relationships and how we interact and engage with residents and the trust factor? Is that kind of the approach?
No, that's a portion of it.
Okay.
But more directly, and my concerns were about the current security team who signed on the dotted line.
And is backing out, not fulfilling their obligation, and now we're spending more money.
And now we're being, you know, now we're having to spend more money of the public money on services.
Okay.
But I would also like to know, you know, what clawback provisions we will have in future contracts if we have folks who go into a community that they may not want to deal with because of whatever the, you know, circumstances are there.
Okay.
Just so that we can be more fiscally responsible.
All right, thank you for clarifying that.
So just to clarify the expenditure concern, we're just transferring money, Commissioner, from one PO to another. And so there's no additional funds that were required for the new company. Yes.
So the other company is obviously not being paid for services not rendered.
Absolutely.
That money is being lateraled over to these folks for those areas that they had opted not to, or have the lacking capacity or willingness to serve. Okay. So,
yes.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Yeah,
All right.
if I could add, I believe it's our decision to make the change, not their withdrawing, but our withdrawing them.
Based on our dissatisfaction.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Alvarez, yes, we'd like to get to know you a little bit. Tell us about your organization and kind of how you approach.
I just take a seat and let everybody go.
Right on.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chief Jonathan Alvarez. I am the owner of Protective Force International. Yes, we are a new company, but very experienced. We hire qualified officers who meet the criteria to assess the needs of the communities that we serve. We have, I can safely say, we probably are one of the most diverse organizations that we have. Hispanic myself, a lot of officers come from multicultural places and ultimately know the residents. They live in the communities that they serve. So we are very happy to have had this opportunity. The way that we approach and do our operations, in fact, the properties that we took over, we conduct walkthroughs, speak with the residents, speak with property managers, walk with them personally to see exactly what the needs are, what are they seeing in the community that we can address further. Some of these properties were only there a limited time, so we can only do certain things, but the procurement contract and the future contracts would also allow us to respond, hopefully 24/7, to assist in the community's needs for not only just the time an officer is on site.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Any particular questions for him? Ms. Diaz?
Thank you so much for sharing that about the company, about the diversity. I think it's really important, especially hearing that you have Latinos and different backgrounds, especially hopefully language. It's so important to have folks that we can go to and we can say, hey, we need your help, or we're seeing this pattern or this trend, and feel that connection. I just wanted to kind of tell you that we're open as a board to receiving any feedback as you are in the spaces and you're having to deal with different security issues. Don't be shy to let our executive director know about these things that you think are compromising the safety and well-being of our seniors, of our community, because there may be some quick fixes that if we're informed, we could be more nimble and address before our community has to come to our meeting and put it on our radar. So I just wanted to put that open invitation out for you to give us feedback, because sometimes we haven't seen it through a safety official's lens about things that may be happening that could be avoided, or ways to keep our residents safer. So I just wanted to say, please make sure that you're communicating that to our staff so that we can help bring part of the solution, because sometimes it's just the way that things are set up or not locked or accessed, or they're, that we just need to address. So
Yes, ma'am.
that's it.
Ms. Craig?
I have a question, and when I read it, I wanted to make sure he said one thing. And my understanding, it said it's going to be you, people that are new, are going to be at the non-problematic area. You're going to be at the problematic areas, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Eventually, we did bid for the process for the next contract as well. And the problematic areas is essentially what we specialize in. We specialize in every type of community. It's just what the community needs is what we offer.
So my question is, it also said that the other company, I'm going A and B. A is the one we had. B, are you going to be the new one that's going to be coming on? My question is, I thought I read that company A is still going to be with the places that are non-problematic. Am I understanding that?
They're fulfilling a scaled-back version of their contract.
And I think that's just to the end of the current contract.
Okay.
Which expires when, Mr. Shaw?
9/30/21?
Okay, no worries,
I
but,
believe it's September 30th.
okay,
9/30/21.
okay, all right, thank you. All good? Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Alvarez? We spend a tremendous amount of money as an investment in security, and it's critically important that that investment turn into a valuable asset that's identifiable and quantifiable to our residents, and that's through satisfaction, interaction, that's through minimizing incidents of crime or being able to respond to them, and then protecting our physical assets as an agency. So we appreciate your willingness to help us achieve that goal.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion from the board.
So move, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Diaz, a second by Commissioner McCurdy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing none, that passes. Thank you so much. Item number 11, appointment to 4 standing committees and 1 ad hoc committee of the commission. Turn that over to Mr. Gressley.
Well, I'm just going to pass it back to you, Chairman.
That's fine. Back and forth.
This is a product of the input from all of the commissioners, and the chair and the vice chair and I had a conversation about it last week, and I think I'll let you just present it from here.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So when I first joined the board just under 4 years ago, there were some standing committees. We met on a monthly interval. They were informative. They weren't tremendously interactive, but time transpired. We determined that the frequency of monthly was perhaps, the data didn't change quite as rapidly, so we changed it to every other month. And then, of course, the world shut down with COVID, and so we kind of lost the benefit and the value of having those standing committees where groups of commissioners met in a setting with our awesome staff to really dig in on some of the issues, to gain knowledge and understanding of operations and what's being done to improve in areas that need improvement. And so now we're here today to kind of reinstitute and re-engage in that process of utilizing standing committees and ad hoc committees as needed to be able to really further the work of the agency. We meet monthly in this arena here. There's great value in this process here by virtue of doing formal work, by hearing from our residents and our constituents. That's critically important as well, but to really work more with some continuity and more touch points throughout the months and weeks will be accomplished by virtue of these committees. So the committees are as follows. I'll read the proposals here for the record, and then I'll turn it over to the board for any comments, discussion, aspirations, and hopes for where we go from here with these committees, so we can really utilize this resource to be of value to our agency. Executive Committee, the proposals is Commissioner Scott Black, Olivia Diaz, Sharon Davis, and Tick Segerblum, with Olivia Diaz being the committee chair. Operations Committee, the proposal is Sharon Davis, Olivia Diaz, Tick Segerbloom as the chair, and Commissioner Dan Shaw. The Administration and Finance Committee, Scott Black, Valerie Craig, Cheryl Davis, and Dan Shaw as the chair. Supportive Services and Resident Affairs Committee, Valerie Craig, Cheryl Davis as chair, William McCurdy, and Luciana Turner. And Bylaws Committee, which is our ad hoc committee, that's the fifth committee we'll be discussing, is Scott Black, Cheryl Davis, William McCurdy II as committee chair, and Ms. Luciana Turner. So that's the proposal of the makeup of these committees. We solicited from the board members. We laid out what the committee options are, what their interest level were to participate, because it does take, all of us up, everyone's busy. Everyone has things to do and obligations to keep. All of us up here have a myriad of hats that we wear in our various roles in life. And so to be sensitive to the time, we solicited everyone's interest to see what committee is the best fit for them, what they have the most acumen to be a contributor to that committee, or just something they're interested in. And that's based on those feedbacks. We tried to align it as closely as we possibly could with the top 1 and 2 selections for the board members, and that's how we arrived at this makeup. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board for any thoughts, observations, or projections on how we move forward with these committee assignments and the opportunity to further serve. Yes, sir. Mr. McCurdy?
If there are no comments or concerns, I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Okay, all right. Mr. Shaw?
In looking at these assignments, which I don't have a problem with, is it possible to have staff support for some of this so that we can take minutes, we can have action items, we can follow up and do what we need to do?
That's a fantastic suggestion. I think, well, the staff engagement is already present in the nature of the committees. They give us reports, data, information. We have a discussion about line items of the presentation and the reports, but keeping a record, documenting what's discussed, action steps that we commit to in that, having some follow through with documentation. So can we support that, Mr. Gressley?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's a wonderful suggestion. So that we're not meeting just to meet, we have some continuity.
In conjunction with that, when we previously did this, the committees received good information from staff and there was discussion, but those recommendations or action items weren't really discussed among the board, and so everybody kind of had their own separate program. So one of the things that I would like to recommend is that as we commence with these committee meetings and we get our minutes and so forth, that part of this meeting be some kind of a reporting process or some kind of a review process by the chairman or committee members that say, hey, here's what we did, here's the action items, here's the action we're moving forward with, so that we all know what's going on with each of these operations.
That's also a great point. And when we had these active committees, prior to COVID, we did have a reporting component on the agenda where the chair would come and kind of summarize the meeting and talk about any action steps. But I think to formalize that and make sure that we not only present from the discussions at the meeting, but we can discuss it as well as a full board and determine if we're all on board as far as moving forward with those suggestions or recommendations. So if we can formalize that aspect of it, that would be great as well.
Okay.
All right. Okay, yes, ma'am. Ms.
Thank you,
Diaz.
Mr. Chair. And then just thinking about then now the continuity of, making sure that we're taking advantage of these roles and these responsibilities and hearing the information and being part of the process, will we be in the ability, COVID has taught us a lot about how to be nimble and flexible. Will we be able to do hybrid settings for folks who may have to call or maybe WebEx in versus being in person?
These are your committees, so we'll be working that all out with you and making it as convenient as we can possibly make it for you to participate. So yes, of course.
Yeah, I definitely, to Councilwoman Diaz's point, the previous iteration of these committees, it seemed to be that it was fairly rigid in terms of the time, and why have a committee if the committee members can't attend and participate? So we'll make certain that we have that flexibility built in for availability and also access points to join in the most convenient fashion possible. All right, Mr. McCurdy, can we make that motion for us?
Oh, if there are no further questions or comments,
Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve committee appointments.
Wonderful, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner McCurdy, a second by Commissioner Craig. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for being willing to participate. All right, now we'll go to the Section 5 of our agenda today, business items. Item number 12, receive report on the from the Interim Executive Director on administrative and operational activities of the agency. Mr. Grassley.
Well, let me start with that last item, Commissioners, because now we have our marching orders in terms of staffing and supporting the committees. And I will be in contact with each of the committee chairs to make a plan for essentially getting the committees up and running and setting out some targets for the remainder of this year in terms of meetings and purposes of the committees. I do want to report to you on a number of items that have been taking place that have had quite a bit of focus on the part of senior leadership and keeping our senior leaders busy and focused since their last meeting. These are all significant activities, and I would like to make you aware of each as they contribute to the success of the functioning of the organization and its improvements. First, we are in the fiscal year budget preparation cycle, being led by our Chief Administrative Officer. This is, of course, a major effort requiring all of the leadership team's efforts, but most especially the efforts of the CFO and of his team in the finance department, and we appreciate their effort, but just be aware they're quite busy right now. Next, I would like to mention that while it is the time of the budget cycle, it's also the time of our annual plan, which needs to be submitted to HUD later this year. So we will, in a few days, begin meeting with the Resident Advisory Board that you appointed at the last meeting. There may be some additions to that board that we may bring to you at the next meeting because there has been at least one election, I believe, since the last of officers to an association. But we will be bringing forth the plan ultimately, and we'll be sharing it with the Resident Advisory Board to get their feedback and their input. Third, we're well into labor negotiations, and they continue and are making progress toward a new collective bargaining agreement. This effort is a product of two teams, a labor team and a management team, who are working together, and we appreciate all of their time and attention to lead to an improved collective bargaining agreement. At the last meeting, I mentioned that we were potentially going to receive 586 emergency housing vouchers. We have now, we were hoping maybe to receive some more if someone didn't take some that were being offered, but apparently everyone did. So we have received now word that we have 586 emergency housing vouchers, a special allocation of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, and this one is targeted at very specific populations. We are currently negotiating a memorandum of understanding with the Continuum of Care under Clark County Social Services for the provision of referral and support services to assist the clients of this program. We anticipate the program being up and running by the beginning of July, and the program will make a significant effort at reducing the number of homeless in our community. I say a significant effort and a reduction, 586. I don't want to say it's a drop in the bucket because I don't want to seem we don't appreciate, and it's important to the community that we do everything we can, but there's a huge problem that we're still not able to address with this number, but we'll do what we can. Also want to make you aware, as I think you are, many of you are already, that members of the leadership team are working in the preparation of an application that will allow us to transition or reposition Jamestown Towers and renovate it as a part of that process. Staff will be meeting in the next few weeks with the residents of Jamestown Towers to outline both our plans for rehabilitation and repositioning the property and assisting and making plans for assisting residents through a process ultimately that will involve some amount of relocation down the road. But we're a few months away from that, but we're in the planning process. You should expect, though, fairly soon to see an application for that repositioning to come forward. Finally, and this is not all we're doing, but just one other big item, is that we're in conjunction with the city of Las Vegas and our developer partner Bryn Shore on Marble Manor, we are working to prepare an application for a Choice Neighborhoods Initiatives Planning Grant for Marble Manor. I've asked Mr. Stafford, Director of Modernization and Development, to bring you up to date on the current status of that effort. So, Mr. Stafford.
Good afternoon again, Frank Stafford, Development Modernization Director. We have been working on a Choice Neighborhood Initiative application with the City of Las Vegas. The Choice Neighborhood Initiative is going to focus on the Marble Manor development. And basically, there's 3 factors to that, which is the housing. We're going to look at replacing distressed housing, mainly Marble Manor. You have a people sector, which is going to focus on the resident community, looking at improving income, employment, health, and education. And then finally, you have the neighborhood sector, which will look at bringing in private and public funding and participation to try to improve that neighborhood. So where we're at in the process with this now is, as part of the CNI application, which is due on July 13th, HUD will provide $450,000 if you're awarded a transformation planning grant. But we have to promise upfront $315,000, which is 70% of the $450,000 that we'll get from HUD. So you'll be looking at a total of over about $765,000 for the 2-year planning grant. The City of Las Vegas has pledged $50,000, and that was approved at their council meeting yesterday. But since we have to have the application in by July 15th, the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority is going to look at pledging the additional $265,000. We're going to do that based on the current contract that we have with Bryn Shore Development, which is also for Marble Manor. It's going to basically, these 2 planning grants they'll kind of work in conjunction. So we'll take $171,000 that we've already pledged with Bryn Shore, and then out of our development fees, we'll add another $94,000 to make up that $265,000 so we can submit our application. One thing you have to keep in mind is that if the application is not approved, then we are not on the hook for any money. If it is approved, we'll pay our portion, and in return, we'll get $765,000, including what we put up the city and HUD. And then there will be other donations, in-kind donations from all the other partners that we bring in to support this effort. And the big thing, the main thing about this is that if we complete this transformation planning grant and we're successful, and then we get the implementation grant, now you're looking at the opportunity to get $30 million from HUD to help revitalize that neighborhood.
So let me just add one comment about strategy. I think it's a very smart strategy to apply for an implementation grant. I don't know whether they now require a planning grant first before an implementation grant, but I know in the past, when I've worked with the Hope 6 program, which was the forerunner of this, you didn't have to have a planning grant first. You could apply straight for an implementation grant. But I think the strategy to apply for implementation grant, if that's a choice we're exercising here, I'm not sure. But I think it's a very smart strategy because HUD likes to give money to success. And if they give money for an implementation to something they've already spent money on a planning grant, then they're patting themselves on the back and saying, boy, we're glad we gave them that money for the planning grant. So I think it buys us a relationship with HUD. If we are successful at obtaining the planning grant, and it begins to establish that relationship between us, the city of Las Vegas, and Bryn Shore, and I think it'll really move us down the road here. Now, you heard Mr. Stafford mention the application is due July 13th, I think.
Correct.
So we're on a very short fuse here, but we wanted you to be aware of this because I think this is critical to proceeding on any reasonable timeline at Marble Manor.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Does that conclude your report, Mr.
That
Grossley?
concludes my report.
So, in regards to the planning grant, from application date to award, what's the standard window of time that HUD usually has in order for us to learn the outcome?
Typically about 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months, okay. Any other questions for Mr. Grossley or comments, Mr. McCurdy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you know, possible, I would like some type of report or some type of plan submitted to the board so that the new members can be, you know, abreast of what's going on. And maybe potential partners could be Clark County, being that we are responsible for all social services and also have a very strong initiative towards affordable housing. Obviously, there will be a natural synergy with public housing, but let's definitely talk offline and see how we can work together.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Mr. Gressley? Thank you to you and your team for the good work and the diligent effort, deliberate effort, not just doing the day-to-day, but going beyond like this type of grant application that is going to bring value to our community. So,
Yeah, this would be a tremendous opportunity, and we're not
Absolutely.
going to turn down any offers of help, Commissioner.
that's awesome. All right. At this time, we'll go to item number 13, identify emerging issues to be addressed by the board and interim executive director at future meetings, receive updates on the activity of the interim executive director, and direct the interim executive director accordingly. One thing that was stated earlier that I'll just put on the record at this time to reiterate is that we'd like to have a comprehensive look at Section 3. Yes, sir, Mr. Shaw? So that's been noted.
I'm asking the board to give me until August meeting for that presentation because I have a medical procedure next week and I'll be out for the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very reasonable. Is that acceptable to the board? Thank you, Mr. Shaw, and good luck on your quick recovery. Yeah, so if we can have that in August, that would be fantastic, just so we can educate ourselves on the inner workings of that program and really maximize the benefits of to our residents. Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Chairman, in conjunction with Mr. Grassley, I think that in the near future, we should have a discussion about these vouchers. You know, it's come to my attention, for example, that Chicago, which has basically the same population as Southern Nevada, they get 30,000 vouchers a year. And we get, what, 18 maybe? And so there's a huge...
About 12,000.
About 12,000. There's a huge disparity here. And there's no real method of increasing this without some legislative help or somebody in Washington assisting us, and we ought to talk about how we can approach that to get, you know, some equality here on what's going on, because I don't think they've revised their numbers. They just sent us what they sent us the previous year for years and years, and obviously we're growing and we need more vouchers. So I'd like to have a discussion on how we might help facilitate that and move that forward.
Yeah, and I think that would be an ideal conversation too, to have at one of the committees, to start that conversation, then bring it to the whole board. We can really dig into it. And I can speculate here, but I won't. We'll wait until we can talk. Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
I just wanted to acknowledge, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Gressley, that we have an amazing staff that put together a wonderful Family Day event at the East Las Vegas Community Center. We had a lot of our employees there working, but we had some folks volunteering. And so I just wanted to make sure that they knew that their efforts in meeting our community and providing resources, food, and vaccines and yoga. This past June 5th was, for me, I stopped by, I watched the work, and it was amazing. So I just wanted to make sure that our staff, our hardworking staff, got acknowledged for all of the efforts that went into putting that together.
Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to say that in line with the development of our committees today, we will be having the support from the technical assistance contract from HUD, from Econometrica. So I just would encourage my colleagues to, as is there Margaret McGillivray, when she engages with us, she's going to be on scene to help us develop those committees and really get a maximum value out of them. Would you like to speak anything to that, Mr. Gressley?
Well, just to let you know that got kind of sidelined because of COVID-19. And she and I have had 2 or 3 conversations, and it's an evolving conversation. Now that you've set the committees, I think we'll proceed with some of our planning. But what I had talked to her about was really focusing on the functioning of the committees, their charge, their responsibilities, and identifying methods that the committees can use to be really engaged and support the role of the staff and work with the staff of the agency to help us all achieve a higher level of performance. And so that's the direction we're going right now, is talking about that. And what may come from this might be that we would try to schedule a series of committee meetings, not exactly back to back, but over the course of a few days, so that we could have her and her team be in Las Vegas and meet with each of the committees in a series of meetings. And we'll plan some activities. I mean, we'll plan agendas for those that will draw the interest of the committee members into that discussion and help plan for those, the technical assistants to really focus on the committees. And then after we've done that, it may be appropriate then to bring it into the full board with some area of linking all that work together. But I will be talking with her next week, actually, is our next conversation. She's given me some dates in July and August. We just haven't, until the committees were set, I didn't want to take another step on it until I was sure that was going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Gressly, I know the legislative session just concluded, and I know that we were trying to figure out if we could resolve not having to be part of an auditing process. Were we unsuccessful in trying to work our way out of that obligation that kind of is just a box checker, but it really doesn't apply very much to us, or will we have to pursue that for the next go?
Well, we're going to have to pursue it the next time. Unfortunately, by the time we got into it, the process was ahead of us, and we just couldn't catch that bus. But we will be ahead of it next time, because we're going to start the strategy now, and you'll have basically a year and a half to put something together. But in the meantime, Mr. Herron is going to have a headache putting up with it, and there's no alternative. And by the way, I have to appear at a hearing in August and tell them where we are, and that's not going to be pleasant either, but there's nothing we can do about it, quite frankly. The effort to unravel our finances from the federal system to make it satisfy them is more effort than to wait a year. Well, it's not just more effort, it's just unreasonable, quite frankly. We are a federally funded program. That's our parent organization, and we need to stay engaged with that organization. So I'm confident that we'll have it set up now a year and a half away. That's what I'm hoping.
All right, thank you. The last thing I have is, it's several months down the road, but I encourage you to put on your calendar, October 21st is the Family Self-Sufficiency Graduation Celebration. So when I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it because it's what inspired me about the work that's done here at the Housing Authority. When I first joined the board 4 years ago, I didn't really know a whole lot about public housing or the Housing Authority in general, and I was invited to the Family Self-Sufficiency Graduation, and I saw these parents, these residents, with great emotion and great celebration and great pride, accomplishing amazing personal, financial, educational, home ownership goals, and there were children in the audience that were witnessing this and inspired by the efforts of their parents. And so I've been a fan of FSS since I've been here. I'd like to see that program continue to grow and succeed. I'm going to be reaching out individually to my colleagues on the board to offer any support that we possibly can to make this coming event a great success, because it's going to be a 2-for-1 because we didn't have one in 2020. So just wanted to put that out there. I can talk more one-on-one with folks, but it's a really amazing program. Anything else before we? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one thing I would like to have followed up on. On June 5th, I was contacted by one of the residents at Marble Manor in regards to an uncovered hole where there was some work being done. It was a very dangerous situation. A child could have, easily fallen into the hole, which would have made us liable for, any injuries that would have been occurred. But let's, send out a memo to our contractors, reminding them of their responsibility, both, in terms of their work, but also in terms of the fiscal responsibility that they have if something were devastating were to happen. And that was at Marble Manor, and we can contact the resident president to follow up further, but I believe it was addressed, And I know that there were many calls sent out, not only to myself, but also the congressman's office and many others just trying to figure out what's going on. But that's just unreasonable to expect people to deal with.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will go to the last item on our agenda, which is citizen participation. Items raised under this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon by the Board of Commissioners for the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority until the notice provision of the open meeting law have been complied with. If you wish to speak on matters not listed on the posted agenda, please step to the podium, clearly state your name and address. Please spell your last name for the record. The amount of time any single speaker will be allowed is 3 minutes, and we can extend that. Of course, all comments should be relevant to the work and scope that we have as Board of Commissioners of the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority. Hi, Ms. Patton.
Hello, Mr. Black.
Good to see you. You're quick. You jumped up quick.
Oh, yeah, that's why I sat up front here. Well, everybody know Wadeen Patton, Jamestown Towers. Okay, my problem is this. Jamestown Towers, when you call to maintenance for a light bulb, why would you have to put in a work order for a simple light bulb, a drip pan, a filter, which they tell you will take up to 10 days? There should be a policy that if they ask for a light bulb, hand it to you. You can change it. I mean, we're not helpless to change a light bulb, unscrew, screw it in. Drip pan, take it off the stove, put another one on. Okay, it should be a policy. I mean, why would it take 10 days? And also, I want to commend those security. They look professional, because the ones at Jamestown Towers did not look professional. I mean, last week, we had a problem. We had 3 people in our computer room, 2 females, 1 male, backpack, homeless. The male was using our computer. Now, they're coming in. If a resident goes out, they'll sit on a bench, wait till somebody come out, and then they go in. Well, seniors in our building, you have them in wheelchairs, you have them in walkers, you have them in electric chairs. They're not going to say anything to these people, which is not their job. But, I mean, it's a safety issue with them. Now that it's getting hot, it's going to be a more problem, because they're going to come in to try to stay cool, and I can understand that. By the God of grace, I have a roof over my head and I have air, but they don't. I mean, I don't know if they're going to hurt the people or not. But now, I'm going to speak up, and I'm not going to let them come in. You're not coming in. If I'm coming in the door, you're not coming in behind me. We had an incident Sunday where the man had to rob somebody, ran over to us, tried to open the gate in the back. If you pull forcibly enough, that gate will open. But the only thing is they can't get through the doors, because you have to have a key to unlock to come inside the building. They would be in the courtyard. But, yeah, that's our problem we're having over there now, and it's getting hotter, and it's going to be a more problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patton. Mr. Alvarez, can we get her a badge and a vest? 'Cause she would be awesome. I would hire her in a heartbeat. What do you think, Wadeen? Okay. Yes, indeed. We just made a good connection here. Anyone else like to speak during public comment? Or citizen participation, I should say?
John Johnson for the record. I have a couple of questions. My first question, the last board meeting I came to, I had to go somewhere, so I couldn't stay for public comment. But Ms. Craig, when it came to the budget and stuff, you had some amazing questions. But my concern, or the question that I have, is for new board members, when you guys come onto the board, is there any board training for you guys? I know when you become a state assembly person, they send you to the state capitol, I believe 2 or 3 weeks before session, or some months before session. You're trained, you're told what to do. I'm pretty sure they do it with the city council. So your questions were, very on point, but that's stuff like you had said, Commissioner Black, when you're dealing with the budget and, going to reconsolidate your budget, it's a process that you guys do and stuff like that. But when you guys come on, if they're told this stuff and if they're trained behind the scenes, then she wouldn't have asked all those good questions, which, they weren't bad questions. So that's my first question is, do you guys get training for your jobs when you guys come on as new board members? My second question is about these new committees. So these committees, is just as well as the Resident Advisory Committee, are they bound by the same open meeting laws as this committee, which means are they going to be open to the public? Are you guys going to have to post it online and all that good stuff? Are there going to be public comments at these committees? And then my last comment is about the Section 3 program. So just like with the security, the Section 3 program has been brought up pretty much every time I've been here. When there's a new contract, everybody talks about the Section 3 program. I've had conversations with the old executive director about my thoughts, so I thought I'd share them with you guys. So the Section 3 program, just like Mr. Shaw said, it's not guaranteed. The law basically says to the best of their ability to hire staff, or excuse me, to hire residents. My suggestion to the old executive director is, why don't you put it in the RFP when you guys put the stuff out for proposal? Just like he said, oh, he's gonna follow up with this vendors to see what opportunities. Well, why don't you put that in the RFP? Hey, you know what? We have a Section 3 program to where you guys can hire our residents on your jobs. If you get this contract, will you have any jobs available for Section 3 residents? It's a simple question. So therefore, when they're put, and I also asked, can you guys actually put that as part of this, the scoring? Okay, well, you know what? I want this contract and I can guarantee that I'll hire 5 residents. Or you have another contractor that says, hey, you know what? I can offer this price, but I can do 10 residents. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, if you guys really care about getting residents hired, why don't we do some action besides saying stuff? Because just like what Ms. Craig said, you know, I'm more of an action person. I don't want to hear it, I want to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Really quick, in terms of onboarding commissioners, there is an onboarding binder that commissioner binder that we receive, and then also there is a real good basic training called Lead the Way from HUD that we're all, by virtue of signing up on the board and accepting this appointment, to complete within the first 6 months. It's one that I think is good to do on a repeated basis, because it does have a comprehensive look at the agency and our role as board members. And then the committees are not open, not bound by the open meeting law because of this number of individuals. We don't have a quorum. None of them will have a quorum. There won't be any action or voting items. It's all about discussion and talking about things that we can do to improve the agency. Any other individuals that would like to speak?
One more thing I'd like to address. Now,
Ms. Wadeen Patton,
yeah,
Jamestown
Wadeen
Tower.
Patton. Yeah, Jamestown. We didn't find out we don't have any security until the weekends. This is a lack of communication between residents and management in the office. We should be told we don't have any security. And then when we did have them sleeping out in the car for 4 hours, you walk around looking for them. Heck, I can walk around the premises myself, and I'm not security. But you walk
You are
around
now.
there.
Just kidding.
Well, you walk out there now, you see no security. And I've seen them sitting in the car. I walk 6 o'clock in the morning, coming back, here's a security guard in his car asleep. What security? What are you getting paid for? So it's lack of communication. Management office should have told us we didn't have security, instead of us having to go look and find out that we didn't have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patton. Anyone else like to speak during citizen participation? Hello, sir.
How you doing? Justin Winsley, 1801 J Street. This is second meeting I done came to. Still haven't heard anything from any of the executives about the discrimination I've been receiving since 2019 from you guys. Ava stated John didn't want to speak to me. Like I said, it's just ongoing, I guess, to the point I have to hire a lawyer now, from going to the situation of how long it's been going on, and the on continuous of me calling him and he's not returning the calls. So.
I don't know for certain, but I understand. Was there's a grievance process that we would adhere to and follow? Have you engaged in that process at all yet, Mr. Winsley?
Yes.
Okay, so you're at some point during that process, at the beginning point of it, or?
Well, this has been going on since 2008 since 2019 of September.
Okay.
Like you say, 2 years. So it was going on in my previous housing that I left to come here. So to come fresh here and tell you guys about a service animal and then still get discriminated going on 2 years later just doesn't make logical sense.
Okay.
And then for the director not to want to call back when his people under him are not doing their job properly, nor is the management. So then, like you say, this is the third eviction. Basically, I had a formal meeting. Had a formal meeting today.
Okay.
So
Today. Okay.
again, basically your staff lied the whole meeting. After, they say, are you not gonna lie? So why have a meeting with people that's just gonna lie when all the evidence is right there in front of them? Just doesn't make logical sense to me.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak during citizen participation? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Darrell Hawkins, Sartini Plaza. Pre-pandemic, I came to you guys a couple of meetings in regards to the hot water. I got the hot water, and after that, I'm taking a shower, the water goes from hot to cold. And I'm extremely hot, extremely cold. I placed a service call, of course, 10 days before somebody shows up. Oh, we've got to turn the water off, we've got to change some stems or something else. Wait another month, that gets done, same problem. Call the service back again, and I think it's something like a manifold or something that has to be done. This is pre-pandemic. It's after the pandemic. Problem's still not solved. I'm still taking hot and cold showers. I place a call to service. This is another thing. You have a 4-day week in the building. I had a water leak in my bathroom on a Saturday. Called, and I get the answering service. They said that they'll call somebody and have somebody come out who's on call, and they'll call you and let you know what the status is. Never got a call. So I called the service back, and they said they didn't call you or nothing. So an hour and 30 minutes later, somebody shows up. The water's dripping in my bathroom. He takes off a cap, turns the water off. That's all. But in the meantime, I'm shuffling water. I'm getting rags and towels and drying up so it won't be that much water damage. I've been in construction. I know what it can do. But if I wasn't there, it would have been a real big issue. I just wanted to know, I don't know the data or how big you guys are and things like that, but as far as the time that it takes for somebody to answer the call or to place the call, it takes time. For somebody to respond to the call, it takes time. And if there's a water leak, it takes time. And that's going to cost you. It's going to come back and haunt you. It's called preventive maintenance. If there was a shutoff valve or something that we could turn off while that water is leaking, that would save a lot of money. It's just something probably that you should think about. Those are some of the things that I'm concerned about. Another thing is, I'm on the resident council, and the president says that we're not open yet. It's hot outside. We have benches out there to sit down, but I waited on the ride today, but I can't go inside in the lobby area because there's no place to sit. I don't know, are we open or are we closed? Can we put the furniture back into the lobby areas or chairs? Is that something that we can do so we don't have to sit out in the sun to wait on a ride? That's it. Okay?
Thank you. Did you say you're at Jamestown Towers?
Sartini.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Plaza.
Okay, Sartini Plaza. So I know Mr. Gressley's taking some notes over there. A lot of things that are present in your comment. Can we connect with him? Okay. And in terms of where we're at as far as the COVID protocols, as of June 1, the state, any mitigation measures were released or removed from an agency standpoint. If we are still doing anything above and beyond what the state is requiring, perhaps we can communicate that.
I'd appreciate it, just to
Okay.
give me some knowledge on
Yes,
what's
sir.
going on. Because we go to the office window and we can't have anything in the lobby area.
Okay.
But, we can go to restaurants now,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for your
Hawkins.
help.
Really appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak during public comment? Mr. Alvarez.
Jonathan Alvarez, Protective Force International. I just wanted to touch base on some of the concerns that she had referenced as security operations. So currently, whenever we take on a new property, what's done first is a risk vulnerability assessment. So a team goes on. I know your concerns were, hey, how do we speak to the residents? Do we get to learn some of the concerns? A team of mine goes onto the property and works cohesively with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department or whatever jurisdiction this department is in. We collect the analytics of that area and build a risk assessment based on what that property is happening within it and in the surrounding area. So in changing hours, we've recommended some of that stuff to the current properties, but our program and bringing us on board also allows the residents to call it 24/7. So if there is an issue when an officer isn't on site, you can still call us to our dispatch center for non-emergency response, which many of the properties who we have contracted do now. Our officers respond just like Metro. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of other situations that may not, they cannot deviate from, so it's maybe an hour, 2-hour waits for something minor. We come in on board and take it over. So that's kind of the process of what we do. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on some of the things and concerns that they had.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
I have a
Seeing
question.
none?
I live in Jamestown Towers. I'm sorry. Mr. Alvarez, por favor. Habla con nuestros. My question is, I understand we had Security A and Security B, you're Security B. So my question is, does that mean Security A is gone? Because my understanding is you all are prioritizing what's most important, what's most critical. So would JDT, would we be considered to be a critical place, or would we be considered to be a place that's not very critical?
So due to our contract, how it runs right now, we do not have contracted your property, so it is not a critical property right at the moment.
So what are the criteria? I'm sorry.
So actually, if we can, since this is relative to Jamestown Tower specifically, and your question specifically, can you speak with
Absolutely.
Ms. Craig afterwards
Absolutely.
to clarify what your role is, and Mr. Gressley? Okay, is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. All right, well, thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a pleasant and toasty afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.
Don't say that.